I would ask everybody to shut your cell phones off if you don't want them to go off in the middle of the discussion. Appreciate it. So we welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out on this rainy evening. Thank you for our panel that I will introduce shortly. I did just want to say the focus of this forum, of course, as probably everybody knows, is the implications of declining population in Orleans. The same issues, I think, exist in most of the Cape towns. There are very broad implications of declining population. I mean, it's clear that what has been reported is that since the 2000 census, some 7% of year-round residents have left Orleans. And the number of people that are under 24 years old has decreased by 25%. Those are pretty alarming statistics. They have big implications on our schools. What's going to happen to our school population? What's going to happen to our teacher population? What's going to happen to the large infrastructure we have in schools, buildings, and so forth? It's going to affect our churches. What churches are we going to keep open? Which ones are we going to close? These are all big issues. We have a large infrastructure projects slated for the town, wastewater plans, which are based on a 30% increase in population, and yet we have a 7% decrease in population. Businesses depend on population, maintaining a population to keep themselves profitable and to employ others. But aside from all these issues, the directors of the Citizens Forum thought a lot about this, and we said, what are the things that we think the citizens of Orleans are most interested in? We selected 3 topics. The first one was health care. What's going to happen to our local health care? What's going to happen to us if we need to go to the Cape Cod Hospital and require some serious surgery as the medical profession, and the professional is going to be available for us. We do not want to go back to the times when if you needed some serious surgery, you had to drive to Boston. So that's a big issue with most of the population right now. The second largest issue was the value of our homes. What's happening to the value of our homes, and what will be the value of our homes into the future? I think just this past week, statistics showed that there was a 3% decline in home values right across the Cape in 2011 to date. And the last issue that we decided to look at was services. Who is going to help us maintain our homes and our properties? Where are the carpenters? Where are the electricians? Where are the plumbers? Where are the landscapers? Where are all these tradesmen that we need? One of our speakers tonight will address that issue. So let me get right on and introduce our panel. First of all, sitting right to my right is Ann Van Vleck. Ann is the Executive Director of the Cape Cod Young Professionals. Next to her is Dr. Timothy Reed. He is the CEO of the Orleans Medical Center. Next to him is William Von Thaden. Bill is the president of Von Thaden Builders. Next to him is Tom Cronin, who is the president of American Heritage Realty. And next to him is Patrick Kane, who is the executive vice president of Cape Cod Healthcare. What we're going to do is we're going to ask each panelist to make a brief statement of about 5 minutes. And we have requested the panelists to look at 2 issues. One is, what has the changing demographics done to your business or to your profession to date? And the second question we asked them to address is, what are their thoughts about the future? And we asked them to look at a 10-year time span. We've not asked the panelists to offer solutions. Now, this is the beginning of a community discussion, and I'm so happy to see our selectmen here. And it's a community issue, and this is just the beginning. So with that, let me turn it over to Ann. And
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Orleans Citizens Forum for having me here tonight to give my input. I just want to open with a thank you to Ed for saying that we are not offering the solution, although I wish we were the dream team for the very important issues that we're talking about. How many people here have heard of the Cape Cod Young Professionals? Just a show of hands. That's great. And how many would say they understand the purpose of our organization? A lot less. Okay, and that's okay. That's part of my charge. I was hired a year ago, actually a year ago today, to be the first full-time executive director of Cape Cod Young Professionals. So the mission of Cape Cod Young Professionals, also known as CCYP, the tagline is Connect, Engage, and Advance. So our role really is to connect the emerging workforce and future leaders of Cape Cod, to engage them in our community through networking opportunities and communication, and then to help support their efforts to advance their lives, whether that be in a professional level or a personal level. So that's really what's driving Cape Cod Young Professionals. So a couple frequently asked questions that I hear very often are around the two of the 4 words in our name is what is young, how young do you have to be a young professional, and also what is professional. And we really are very driven to answer these questions, not tonight, of course, but as we move forward as an organization. So I'll just start with the young piece. We are over 400 members strong. They range from mid-20s all the way through 60s, pushing some 70s. So, and you laugh, but yeah, any of you may join. And I'll tell you, the organization was started on the proverbial napkin at a bar by 2 gentlemen, Gary Sheehan of Cape Medical Supply and Mike Robinson of Rogers & Gray. And they really wanted to create a forum for like-minded and similar-aged people to know that they have community and that they have this forum at which they can focus on the betterment of the region as a whole of Cape Cod. And as the organization has evolved, they just celebrated their 6th anniversary. With all of the changes and shifts that have happened within CCYP, it became clear that we really want to open the membership not only to that group, but to anyone who supports the mission of CCYP. And that mission, in a shorter way, is really creating sustainable opportunities and really increasing awareness about the opportunities that are on Cape Cod. And sustainable opportunities, not just people coming and getting jobs, but people who are able to live and thrive and build roots and support their families to stay on Cape Cod. But this isn't an advertisement for CCYP, so I want to get on topic. So Ed mentioned the statistics, and I don't know if you all saw, of course, those census figures, but it was the front page of the Cape Cod Times last August, and it literally said in bold print, young adults flee Cape Cod. So that was alarming, and sometimes the media will do that. But this isn't new news. These have been demographics that have been happening. Now, my counterpoint is that if any of you come to any of our events, Sean DeLue there, NASA Disposal, one of our underwriting sponsors, can attest, these events are attended by, every month, by about 100 people of everyone who is focused on how do we reverse this trend and really create these opportunities for people. So there are people who are focused on this. We have our huge flagship event every September. We just had the 5th one this last September. It's called the Back to Business Bash. Back to Business Bash. It's at the Rectrix Aerodrome, and we had 700 people attending this year. We have over 50 Cape businesses that are supporting us, whether it's through in-kind sponsorships, dollar sponsorships. These are well-attended events that many people don't hear about or know about. So part of our solution to these changing demographics is creating awareness, but not only that, working collaboratively with other organizations and associations who are also working on these efforts. We're working very closely right now with the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. We're working toward a board forum. How can we train new board members and link the new board members in our demographic with the boards that are throughout Cape Cod who are looking for the younger members on their board, or the directors, I should say. We're also working on a relocation publication. How can we give employers on the Cape something to put in people's hands to say, these are the opportunities that are on Cape Cod. These are the school systems, these are the benefits, these are the things to do socially, these are the job opportunities. So we really see CCYP as providing that resource, being that the conduit of a lot of these opportunities for people here on Cape Cod. The 10-year vision, that's hard. We're such a fledgling organization really trying to get our message out. In terms of CCYP, I really tend to think more in the 3-year range. What are we trying to wrap our heads around? We have a couple of big things going on. We're working right now, in addition to the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, with the Cape and Islands Workforce Investment Board on some mentoring opportunities. We want to get a mentoring program in Barnstable High School. This next week is a mock interview process at Mashpee High School, at which we're inviting our members to go and attend and help that out. We are also starting a Career Connect program, and this is a internship, mentorship, and scholarship program. So we've been working on raising money for that. We are on the verge of announcing the specifics. We plan on handing out a handful of scholarships in the range of $2,000 to $5,000 in April of 2012. And these are for people, the Cape Cod Foundation is helping us with this process. And these are for people who want to stay on the Cape and thrive, and whether it's continuing their education or getting an advanced degree. And we ultimately want to move that into trades and helping people get certifications or further licenses. So I think in terms of the 10-year vision for me personally, I am the mother of 3 boys. And I would like to see Cape Cod as a place where they're thriving and growing and having a wonderful upbringing here for all that Cape Cod has to offer. I would like them to go off and have a fabulous college education off Cape. I want them to know that in those years when they finish college and when they want to come back to Cape Cod, that there will be opportunities here for them, that they won't be having to work 2 or 3 jobs or not be able to thrive here on the Cape. We have so many members on our board and in our membership who have story after story about they lived here, they grew up here, they couldn't wait to leave, which is the natural transgression of growing up in your town. And then they all experienced life off Cape and realized how fabulous Cape Cod is, which we all know. So back they came, and they're working really hard to make it happen, and that's the bulk of the people in our membership who are really committed to making a difference and making it work here on Cape Cod. I think that's it.
Start.
All right, we'll do it. Hi, I'm Tim Reed. I was asked again to talk about the declining population and the aging of declining populations here in Orleans and how it affects my outlook in the medical profession as a owner of one of the 2 medical practices that's still based in Orleans. First of all, I say as a primary care provider and one of the few docs on Cape actually who's also board certified in geriatrics, you think this is the right place for me to be. So it's an older population, so it's right up my alley. And my family sort of mirrors or tells the story a little bit of the Orleans demographic population too. When we first moved here 13 years ago, my eldest of 3 children was in 5th grade, the youngest was in 1st grade. Now they're all out of college or beyond, or in college and beyond. And I, of course, didn't get any older. And they're still on the town rosters, bringing the average age of the town artificially down because they're absentee ballots, basically. So I have plenty of patients, and they're getting older, and they have more medical issues, so I have lots to do. So what's the problem? And I think that one of the issues is that even with with a declining older population in Orleans, access to health care is, and particularly to primary care, is a problem and is likely to be more of a problem as time goes on. And the physician I go to personally is no longer accepting any new patients from any insurances. Quite a number of local MDs are not accepting any new Medicare patients, and most are not accepting any new Mass Health patients. So having health insurance is unfortunately not the same as having a doctor and not a guarantee of care. While we are fortunate to have an excellent hospital here in Cape Cod Hospital on the Cape as a community hospital, the emergency room is not the place to deliver primary care, and it's being used more and more still for that because of a dearth of primary care providers in the field. Now, the reasons there aren't more geriatricians or regular primary care people out here is partly that it's uneconomical to some extent to care for the elderly. I mean, Medicare does not historically pay particularly well, and again, you may not be aware of, but if since 1999, there's been a formula that's in law that's sitting out there, sustainable growth, where monies are supposed to be cut to physicians on a regular basis to match inflation, or not to exceed any of this. And at this point, they haven't actually done any of that, but if Congress doesn't act to change a law by January 1st, physicians will have their pay cut across the board by 27.5% by Medicare. And that's unlikely to happen, and they probably will do another kick-the-can fix of this. But this is part of the uncertainty in medical care and in providing care for, particularly for the elderly who are dependent on Medicare. Certainly if reimbursements are cut by a third, I don't know where. At some level, there are going to be fewer and fewer people who are able to accommodate that in their practice. And we've already seen that in people who are going toward concierge medicine, and there are not very many of them on the Cape, but there are some. And so I'd like not to move all of us in that direction. So the physician gets the same care, same pay basically for taking care of somebody with congestive heart failure as they do for somebody with poison ivy. So it's really not, Mrs. Jones takes 20 minutes to get from the front office into the exam room and undress to show you her thing. She's taken her 20-minute appointment. It's an issue, and it's an issue for recruiting new docs to the Cape. In terms of when you're talking about having people come out here, it's an expensive place to live and to practice, and if you're talking about earning maybe a third less than you might be able to get in Boston or some other place by virtue of the patient demographic, that's a significant thing that impacts on people's choice of where they're going to practice. So I mentioned it. I always like this. There's a cartoon about nurse opening the waiting room door and saying, all those with 2 o'clock appointment, please start getting undressed now. This is, my daughter went to China the other year, was at medical care, and they had a room where she had a female problem, and they had half a dozen women in that room, all undressed in the same room for a speculum exam. That's not likely to happen here, but it is a problem of volume-based care. Trying to get to do that. Now, I've staked my professional life in Orleans, and I think it is the right place for other geriatricians to come, and we'll need them if we're going to be cared for as time goes on. Now, the government has also looked at this a little bit, and there are models out there, accountable care organizations and patient-centered medical care facilities, and the object of this is to try to move care from a volume-based system where you get paid on how many people you see, how fast, to looking at quality of care, delivering care perhaps in different ways, but having to make people better, healthier, and keep them healthier. We're fortunate on the Cape to have a selection of people who moved here, at least in part, not for the mega malls, et cetera, but because they liked the natural resources and things that we have out here. Anyway, so I think in terms of just looking at this in Orleans, I think that and I will offer solutions a little bit. One is to make sure that payments to Medicare are not gutted. I think it's going to be very difficult to recruit new blood out here if the already low pay scale is diminished further for that. Again, especially in primary care, it's a high overhead situation. I have 5 medical providers in my office. There are 5 people actually billing for, giving care, and there are a total of 18 people working. And part of this is just the way that the intensity of care that needs to be delivered. So, and the other thing is, again, back to the young professionals aspect, is making the Cape and in particular Orleans, as much as possible a place where people do want to come, can come for other things. I think the new effort, just put in a plug here for my wife and the organization she's helping to work with now, the Orleans Community Partnership, that's looking to help make more of a cultural center of Orleans and be a draw here again for people for other reasons other than tourism. So for cultivating more of a year-round population too.
Hi everybody, again my name is Bill Von Thaden, Von Thaden Builders. Ed, thanks for inviting me. I think here tonight, see what I might be able to add here. I thought a couple of interesting statistics that maybe people realize or don't realize is the median age of Orleans is 55 years old, and believe it or not, that is the oldest in the entire Commonwealth, which is interesting to me.
Speak up a little bit, please.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, so far my phone on top of it. I was just mentioning that Orleans has the oldest population in the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 55 years old.
65.
Is it 65?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got it off the Orleans website.
13 years ago.
All right. And as Ed pointed out, it is a fact that full-time residents are leaving the Cape, families are leaving the Cape, young people are leaving the Cape. It's affecting certainly my business as a builder. I thought I'd give a little background about myself, since maybe I'm a little bit of an oddity living here in Orleans, that I have 3 children of relatively young age, 18, 15, and 12, all born and raised here, going through our Cape school systems, which I do feel we are very fortunate to have here from Orleans Elementary School. 2 of my boys went to the Lighthouse Charter School, and my youngest daughter right now is first year at the Orleans Middle School here. The 2 boys are now in high school. It's a very nurturing situation, and I think they're going to be well prepared for college and their further educations. But from there, I guess, is the question of what happens. It's drawing them back here, which I think some other people have discussed a bit here on the panel so far. So, hopefully they leave, they go off to college, but what gets them back here? What gets our young adults to come back to the Cape? What lures them here? certainly, I guess it's not necessary to even leave the Cape. There are good jobs here on the Cape in the trades. That's what my business is. I employ electricians, painters, foundation people, excavators, and there is a way to make a good living working hard doing these things. But there's no real diversification, i.e. There's no big corporate companies. Not that I'm saying we need a huge bunch of skyscrapers here to entice big companies to come, but there are a few companies like I can think of, like Back Office, where they employ a large amount of people and seem to draw the families here. The point being, I think that we need to draw more families to the Cape to diversify the population again, even it out, and keep our workforces going. It's got to be a concern, certainly of everyone here, including myself, of what's going to happen in the future when it just comes to simple tasks like having our lawns mowed or having our houses painted, and the expenses of that are getting more and more and more, which kind of brings into the future of what's going to happen over the next 10 years, which no one has that crystal ball, but I think that if we can somehow manage to draw people back to the Cape with a more diversified or more diversified opportunities for employment, that would encourage families to come back and get that drift of the younger population moving away, going to college, and staying away. So it's a wonderful place to be, to live. I think that's where we're all here. But we are running into problems in maintaining our workforce. Even myself, when you build a house, you have a commitment, you have a time frame, and at times I would run out of manpower. I have to outsource, per se. I've got to go off Cape. I don't like it. I want to keep local. And I think the way to do that, again, is to somehow bring some more opportunities in here to our younger people after they experience their college educations, and raise a family here and participate possibly in becoming more a part of the community. So I guess I remain optimistic that the future will be bright. I think there are some good things, some bad things of kind of the downturn in our economy right now, where I remember in the 90s, a lot of my friends were able to buy homes, they were able to raise their families here, but those are just the people that we see have drifted off. Now again, we have this downturn, and certainly, and I know Tom will be able to speak better on that, of how the housing market is, but it certainly seems that people are able to hopefully afford homes again, although it's a little more complicated now than it was 20 years ago with even just getting monies from banks and such. It's tight. So I have some hope that this may again bring in that young family atmosphere and make us a little more homogeneous, per se, in our age differences. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Tom Cronin. The only contribution I might add to our distinguished panel here tonight is probably an attempt to put in context our housing market today by providing a brief descriptions of the ups and downs of the market through the lens of the real estate business in Orleans since the 1960s. I arrived in Orleans in 1963 and opened up American Heritage Realty in 1966 at the age of 24, nearly 50 years ago. In the mid-60s, Orleans was quite rural, with large tracts of acreage scattered throughout the town. A few examples, for instance, were the Taylor Farm, fronting on Barley Neck Road, which was still a farm. Mayo's Duck Farm, which is now Countryside development, hadn't been developed yet. The Orleans International Airport, which we jokingly referred to. Sky Meadow Airport was still an airport, and I practiced my crosswind landings and takeoffs there. It's now a large development encompassing Willie Atwood Road, Captain Linnell Road, and Sky Meadow Drive. There were a considerable number of large summer camps, and they were still operating as camps. Today, every one of them has been developed. Camp Namaquite, Viking, to name a couple. Camp Quonset for girls is now the East Egg subdivision in South Orleans. In 1968, as an example, I purchased a 30-acre parcel between Namaquite Road and Port-a-Namicut Road with a house for $95,000. That developed into Heritage Drive. It seems like a steal today, but back in 1966, it had been sitting on the market unsold for 3 years. Gives you sort of a comparison to the interest in vacant land today, which basically our town is built out. So from 1966 through 1980, we actually sold year-round homes to families, with just probably a third of our sales at the time as second homes, vacation homes, or used as investment properties. The real estate market skyrocketed from 1982 till October of 1987. And then in October, the stock market crashed. Real estate values plummeted here and only began a slow recovery 5 years later in 1993. Sales for investment second homes and vacation rentals at that time began to drive the real estate market and reached a plateau of sorts in 2000. And then the little crash of tech stocks that rocked the stock market. And something very odd happened with that crash. All of our buyers by that time had become stock market people. And any time the market wiggled, even a little bit, our phones stopped ringing at the office. However, this time a curious thing happened with this mini crash. Instead of no phones ringing, we began a surge of business right after this mini crash. Why? How so? Stock market investors, for the first time in my recollection, wanted out of this volatile stock market. They wanted to put some money into something tangible, something they could touch, feel, paint, rent, and have the grandkids visit. And they flocked to real estate, our real estate. This, in my mind, was the true beginning of Cape Cod, and specifically in our case, Orleans, as an investment vehicle. Buying real estate in all price ranges from $300,000 to $3 million. It was secure, it was real, and it became profitable. In some cases, very profitable. Put $100,000 down on a $500,000 house, sell it 5 years later for $900,000. That's a $400,000 profit, which could quadruples your $100,000 investment. Get a little rental income to offset the expenses, bang, it works. What doesn't work is how it has affected our town of Orleans in so many aspects. Values continued to grow from 2000 to halfway through 2008. And then the bubble. The bubble burst on Cape Cod, not as bad or as disastrous as, say, Florida, Las Vegas, Arizona, but it burst. And, let's see, I lost my place here. But the local real estate market had, shall we say, a substantial readjustment. Values dropped quickly and seemed to level out 18 to 24 months later. And now we're sort of stabilized. We are on a comfortable little plateau here as we begin 2012. Who knows what's next? So getting back to the point of tonight's forum, where we are today and how has this real estate market I've just described affected Orleans? I'd like to use this analogy. A few years back, let's say 2000, 11 years ago, a young couple buying in Orleans could have purchased a home for as little as $120,000. Yes, it would have been located perhaps on Route 28, Route 39, or some other location that may not have been quite as desirable, but it was Orleans. Somehow they could manage to scrape together $20,000 for a down payment. In-laws, an uncle, savings account, whatever. And the monthly payment on $100,000 would be around $800 a month. Affordable. All this couple needed was a decent job, credit, a decent credit report. The husband could work and a mom could even stay at home with the kids. But at least they were homeowners in Orleans. That same home today is $395,000. We've got one right on Route 28. That's $100,000 down today. And monthly payments approaching $2,000. They can't get the $100,000. They can't afford the monthly payments. And it doesn't really matter what the house price is or the salary amount. It's just the ratio. And back then, young people could afford to live in Orleans. Today, they generally don't have $100,000 to put down, and they can't afford $2,000 of that. Forget your own rentals, there are none. In summation, we're pretty much built out. We in Orleans have become a town of empty houses in the winter. Drive through various neighborhoods, January, February, or right now. Some of them are 10%, 15% occupied. We are also a town of no children. Brewster has them, Harwich has them too. But we are too desirable, too attractive, too charming for a population of 100 million people within a day's drive of our town. They all want what we have, but we no longer sell homes to people. To illustrate, in the last year, our company sold only one home in the town of Orleans. All the rest were investments. And that's not just our office, that's throughout probably this end of the Cape. But my God, we've got the Atlantic Ocean, we've got Pleasant Bay, Nauset, Town Cove, Rock Harbor, Skakit Beach, Cape Cod Bay with miles of sand flats, ponds, coves, inlets, bays. There's simply no other town like us. Thank God we got here when we could still afford it. So to predict the future, I think you have to look at the past and its progression. I see more of the same, and it's not necessarily a bad thing for those of us 50 and older. Life in Orleans is good, great even. Yes, young people can't afford to live here. Most of my children can't afford to be here. But they love to visit, but let's face it, we're not a college town. There are no clubs here. Their lifestyle, it's not only money. Their lifestyle doesn't coincide with what this town offers. Yeah, they like to go to Nauset Beach when they visit. But they'd rather be around Boston. They'd rather be around New York. So it's not really all about money. We wish they could be here. But sometimes they don't wish they could be here. Yeah, they like to visit. So that's it. And for the future, it's probably more of the same. And I don't think any of us have any answers. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Pat Kane. I'm with Cape Cod Healthcare. Cape Cod Healthcare is the parent company of Cape Cod Hospital, Falmouth Hospital, VNA, C-Lab, medical affiliates at Cape Cod, and actually 11 different companies. Dr. Reed's right, we have some real challenges. Healthcare is one of the most regulated industries in America. Healthcare reform is very uncertain. At Cape Cod Healthcare, 67% of our income comes from the federal government in terms of Medicare and Medicaid. So we're very sensitive to what's going on in Washington, but we're not bystanders. We work with our local elected officials, we work with our state officials. I've been up to Boston, lobbying them personally. Our CEO has. We go to Washington. We're trying to effect change as a hospital and healthcare system, as residents of the Cape, as the medical societies of Massachusetts, the hospital associations of Massachusetts. So the challenges are many, but I could spend an hour on healthcare reform, and we have what we believe are an approach, and I would like to share that with you, not to give a commercial for the hospital, but I do want to put it in the frame of reference of our topics here tonight. First of all, it's important to know that Cape Cod Hospital is a $700 million a year institution, and we're the largest private employer in the Cape with 4,500 employees. We're a major driver of economic activity within the healthcare system, purchasing what we can locally, providing good paying jobs. We're almost 70% unionized, and altogether those jobs provide good family wages, living family wages here in the Cape. But I can tell you, if you read the paper today, and part of the topic about this is Cape Cod healthcare system has never been in better shape. We are here to stay. The board of directors, made up of fellow citizens, has reaffirmed its commitment to remain a independent healthcare system, locally governed, where decisions are made by the citizens of Cape Cod for what our best interest is. We're not going to sell, we're not going to merge, we're not going to partner, we're not going to syndicate Cape Cod Healthcare. We're going to go it on our own as long as we can. Financially, the Cape Cod Healthcare just recently finished our very, very strong year. The effect of cost controls, partnering with our physicians, the expense management that's been put in the hospital over the last few years has paid off, and we're taking that money and we're reinvesting it. The owners of Cape Cod Healthcare, of the hospitals of Cape Cod, are all of you sitting in this room, all the citizens of the Cape. We're nonprofit. We have no shareholders. We have no stockholders. We pay no dividends. What we make above our expenses is plowed back into the healthcare system. And in fact, in fiscal year 12, which started October 1st, our capital budget calls for a $50 million reinvestment in our healthcare system. Some of that is forced upon us by the federal government in terms of technology. Dr. Reed's facing that issue in terms of having to prepare his office for electronic medical record, etc. But where it's strong, our bond rating was recently reaffirmed at BBB+, which is a sign of financial health. It helps us lower the interest on our debt, which is a very manageable, approximately $220 million. All the financial indicators are strong. So we're able to look toward the future and offer what we can here. But our widget, how we intend to handle these challenges, how we intend to move forward, how we intend to be here for the citizens of the Cape, our widget, what we make, is quality. It's quality health care. And by many measures, quality is measured many different ways. We're one of the top 10 healthcare systems in America, as independently determined by a number of criteria, which was phenomenal. Stroke, cardiology, oncology. The Visiting Nurse Association does 355,000 in-home visits a year. And it has been named one of the top 25% for quality in America. We partnered last year with our physicians and with a physician hospitalization organization, working together to improve quality, to try and take on some of these insurance companies so that we can negotiate rates and quality and try and working together. As Dr. Reed mentioned, they're not going to pay us or him anymore to do things to people. They're going to pay us more or less a flat fee to take care of people. And we need to move to that. We need to prepare for that. And we have to do that in partnership with our physicians. And we have to do that with quality. We're going to be judged on quality. And in fact, it started this year, we're being paid on quality, on outcomes as measured by the federal government. This investment that I talked about, we have the new Clark Cancer Center so people can get cancer care without having to leave the Cape. It's in Falmouth. We have the Cuda Women's Center, which will be opening, the Wilkins Outpatient Center, which is a women's center of excellence, and a dermatology center of excellence. We recruited dermatologists. We were completely overrun, just like we knew we would. I'm glad to say we were able to bring that service. I'm unhappy to say that she is already filled up through March. So we are feverishly trying to recruit another dermatologist. And we're investing $20 million of that $50 million in our information technology so that when you go to a hospital or you go to a physician's office, they can see your records, they can see when you went to the emergency room, they can put that prescription from the physician to the pharmacy, and Dr. A can know what Dr. B says. Again, this is part of the not only healthcare reform, but it's actually part of the economic recovery stimulus bill passed. And we are incentivized and penalized to do that, as is Dr. Reed. If we do well, we can earn up to as much as a 3% bonus. If we don't do well, they can take 3% away with us. And when you're 67% of your revenue of $700 million comes from federal government, 1% is real money. But as we move forward, the things that are relative to tonight is that the changing demographics unfortunately are benefiting hospitals and healthcare systems right now, because the baby boomers are the biggest bolus of folks, and they're starting to access the healthcare system and move through us. So we have to be prepared for that. But that doesn't help us get workers. That doesn't help us recruit doctors. That doesn't help us balance out the care we're giving to people and how sick people are, that we have to take care of them. You need the well folks to balance out the folks who are sick in terms of how you're dealing with this. So that's absolutely, certainly a challenge for us, and it's one we're concerned about. One of the things that's occurred over years is that healthcare systems, that is companies that manage multiple groups of hospitals, physician groups, etc., have become drivers of economic development in many of their communities. I was telling a story before with the University of Pennsylvania and Johns Hopkins both basically redid the neighborhoods around their hospitals, investing in housing, investing in security, investing in infrastructure. Here on Cape Cod Healthcare, as we do quality and we keep more people on the Cape, currently about 8,000 people a year go off Cape for treatment. About half of those go off for things that we don't offer, such as transplants, neonatal intensive care, burns, level 1 traumas. But as we can keep more of those folks here, that can keep the healthcare system stronger, providing these jobs. And one aspect relative to the reversing the population decline is that when people come to a community, whether they're families, young retirees, military retirees, one of the top 3 things they look for, beside affordability, which you so ably outlined as a challenge, and safety, is good quality health care and access to good quality health care. We have that, and that is a tool that as we try to attract folks to come to the Cape, folks to homestead on the Cape, younger people to the Cape, that is a real plus, and it's a great selling point that we'll be able to use and help us attack this problem. As far as other issues relative here to this community and this part of the Cape, we have been successful in attracting some primary care physicians, some internal medicine folks. They'll be setting up offices and expanding the Fontaine Clinic so that people don't have to go to the hospital. Outpatient means not in the hospital. Okay, and we're going to make it so that our outpatient centers, we're investing $6 million in Sandwiches Outpatient Center. The Fontaine Center here, we're going to invest several $1 million in expanding the services. Mashpee Outpatient Center, altogether we've got 5 in the new Wilkins Outpatient Center off exit 6 by BJ's. So we're going to be able to try and bring healthcare closer. That's another way to try and attract what we can in healthcare. So here in the Outer Cape and Lower Cape, we're very committed to expanding our healthcare and bringing it out here, and that can help attract people as well. It's certainly not a panacea, and it's hard to recruit folks, and it's hard to get young people here, but I think we have some infrastructure that we can provide them. And for the folks that are here, can rest assured that our healthcare system is never been stronger. We're not without our challenges, and a couple of tweaks of the healthcare law could make us very vulnerable, as some of the hospitals in Massachusetts, I believe there were 7 last year, Dr. Reed, you recall, that actually went bankrupt and were forced to sell because they couldn't make their bond covenants. So while we're optimistic, while we believe quality is our widget, and our independence and local governance is a strength that we can use to attack some of the problems of population loss and to attract folks, believe me, we are acutely aware of the challenges that lie ahead and working very hard. A 10-year window, I couldn't begin to guess where healthcare will be 10 years from now. The healthcare legislation that passed phases in over the next 3 or 4 or 5 year window. We will work toward that. It will be a challenge that we are prepared to undertake, but I don't have that answer for you in 10-year window. I do know that people want local health care. I do know that physicians are the experts of health in our community, and our job as a hospital is to give physicians a way to take care of you and the citizens, because the physicians are experts in local health care. So we appreciate your time tonight, and I'd like to commend my fellow panelists for articulating some of the issues very well, and I believe we'll turn it back to our moderator. Thank you.
We ask for your support for OCF. The organization is an all-volunteer, non-profit, non-partisan group that worked very hard to bring you these forums on topics that affect the quality of life here in Orleans. We receive no government grants or support of any kind. Your membership donations are the only way we are able to conduct these forums. So we ask that you see some of the people that are walking around with these white badges and take an application form and join up. It's only $10 a year. It's pretty reasonable. Finally, we have 2 gentlemen that are going to use wireless mics, and they'll circulate amongst the audience. We don't have any written questions, so everybody's free to ask questions. We ask that nobody make speeches, but please ask very short, brief questions so that the rest of us can get our questions answered as well. Hold the mic. How should they hold the microphone, Steve? Point it at their mouth or just...
Just speak directly into it.
Okay, speak directly into the microphone. That will help us get this thing moving. Okay, so are we ready?
The floor is yours, Mr. Daly.
Okay, thank you. So, we're open. There's a gentleman with a question over there.
Excuse me, I think it sounds from what Tom said that we're really becoming a community of old, rich white folks. But one of the things I think we mentioned about healthcare and safety that are important to people moving here is education. And I'm interested if you feel that the demographics are such that we can continue to have a strong educational system in the area. Thanks.
Do any of the panelists feel as though they'd like to address that question? We said at the beginning, we looked at, said there were many, many topics, including education, wastewater, all sorts of issues, but we focused on the issues that the panel mentioned tonight, and one of them was not, we don't have a demographer here. We're depending on the published data that has been published in our newspapers and has been given to us by a guy by the name of Frank Sacey, who is a professional demographer, and from which all these statistics have flown, as well as the 2000 census from the United States government. Any other questions? Gentleman right behind you there.
There seems to be a disconnect, Patrick, between you and Dr. As far as your optimism, I hope filters 3 more down the table to him, because seriously, it was very nice to hear how optimistic and what a wonderful presentation you made as to where you are in healthcare, and yet he suggests a slightly different perspective, which is, there aren't a bunch of folks that are interested in coming to Orleans again. I know you're talking more geographic than necessarily Orleans, but I was having trouble understanding what seems to be a disconnect between your hope that there's...
I don't think it's if I can say, I don't think it's a ruled out thing that you can't attract new physicians to Orleans, but I think for part of the same reasons that Tom Cronin was talking about, I mean, it's difficult to get people to, again, primary care, which is a less well compensated discipline, to come to a place where it's expensive to enter and to be taking care of a patient population that is where you are, at the moment, paid less for that population. So the payer mix is different. So it is tougher, but not impossible to do. I mean, there are people, I mean, I came here, and Tom Whalen, who works with me, who's 12 years younger, came here because we loved the Cape. But it was a sacrifice. It's a difficult thing when you're talking about, you not only have to bring a physician, but their partner and family along with them. So that ties into the educational thing that we were talking. My kids had a great education here. My wife, on the other hand, had to basically change careers coming here. So if you don't have, if you come with attachments, it's difficult to settle both parts of a spouses in. If you don't come with attachments, it's difficult to find them here.
Yeah, and if I might, I'd like to add to that. Dr. Reed hit the nail on the head. The pressures, the governmental pressures, and the pressures on family practice physicians. He's an independent businessman. They're making him automate his office, or they're going to take money away from him. They're making him submit data like never before, or they're going to take money away from him. I mean, that's what healthcare reform is. We're fortunate as a healthcare system that we have an IT department to help us automate it. We have people who can help keep quality records and quality nurses. So the disconnect that you may think is there it's really not a disconnect between where we're going. He's an independent businessman. We're a large corporation. But the health of his business is important to us, and we're partners with them. So yeah.
Why don't you help him?
We do, actually. We have helped many physicians. Some have chosen to become employed. We've employed a number of physicians. Some have chosen to actually lease their practice to us. We've done that. Others have just chosen to affiliate with the hospital in a less formal manner, participating in the physicians organization. All these are recent developments in the last year. So we are helping reaching the physicians, because no physicians, no hospital. It's that simple, and we know they're the drivers of what we do. So on the hospital side, perhaps we're a little more optimistic than the sole practitioners and the primary care physicians, and they do have a tough time recruiting, and the pressure on them is extraordinary. And we try and do what we can. And Dr. Reed, I'm sure you would agree. There's more that we could do, but we are trying.
I'm hoping to discuss that at some point.
Thank you. But we are in this together. Primary care physicians and hospitals are in this together 100%. And it's a new dynamic, and we're learning our way through that.
Any other questions? There's a question over here. Dick.
I guess I seem to be faced with two problems. One is we need enough young people to perform the services for the old people, as pointed out by the panelists, but the young people can't afford to live here. So therefore, if we're going to pay them enough to live here, soon the services will not be unaffordable for many of the old people who live here. And anyone that has any services done soon finds this out. I mean, 10 years ago it was a lot cheaper to get your lawn mowed than it is today, or to get your roof shingled or anything else. And while I believe we have to attract the young people here, we also have to worry about some of the 99% that live here. They're not all 1%ers that own and live here. So I just don't know where this is going to meet and how this is going to be resolved. And that is to me is a 10-year problem. And I know you weren't going to give a crystal ball, but if either of you could shed a little light on that as to where this labor force is going to live, or how are they going to afford to live here, or do people who live here afford those services? Thank you.
think that's something I was trying to catch on a little bit of what I saw happening in the 90s, early 90s, where things became more affordable where they are now, that hopefully this might attract again the younger population to come back here that are interested in performing those services. But it's not only that factor, another factor too that has driven and is going to continue, I think, to drive prices up is just what's happening with insurances, what's happened to building codes within the last several years. These are good things, I guess, but then again, making it that much more expensive to perform all these tasks. So you find more and more people going under the radar, per se, not being properly insured or not getting proper licensing and such to perform tasks that they should, and it becomes a real catch-22 for a homeowner to be attracted by that great price, but huge risk that they're taking if some calamity does happen at their house. So I don't know what the answer is. It's again, the codes are there for reasons, life safety, to help us, but when it does hit that point of diminishing return where it gets to be overkill, and where that ends and where that stops is a hard thing to come up with. But I guess, again, I'm being optimistic that this downturn will allow more people to come into play, to buy homes, live here, if maybe our banks can loosen up a little. Even as cheap as money is, it's still almost impossible to get it.
Yep.
So it's a tough situation.
Question over here, Jim.
I think the age up there, if I could just guess, you're not our age yet, but the youngest one up there, I think, is Ann. Ann, you're now executive director of Young Professional Organizations. And to me, your mission of finding why would young architects or young doctors or young landscapers would want to come to, will be very important. I realize tonight is not the night to say, here are some solutions. But I would like to see you and your organization involved as you talk with our township leaders who have great experience, all of them, whether it be in the zoning board or our selectmen, have done they've lived here many, many years. But I'd like to see your organization really, how did they decide they were going to come to the Cape? The problem we have today, the reason we're having a meeting tonight, is the population drop, and the young people, as William said, are not coming here to live because you have to have a job. So I'm just reinforcing what your organization maybe has already started to do, and I would be interested, if not tonight, at a future meeting, that we could have more specifics on what are your young people telling you? Why would you want to come to the Cape? Because I think that's a nut we need to crack. Thank you.
Right, and I'll just comment on that. Thank you for your support, because that's what I heard from you. And we know that we have our work cut out for us, absolutely. This organization is at a very pivotal time, and my inbox and my phone does not stop ringing with people wanting to know, wanting to hear what we have to say, wanting to know what our thoughts are, wanting to know what our solutions are going to be. And I'll tell you, I'm very excited. We are embarking on some strategic planning that has been in the works. We're actually sitting down with our board of directors and a facilitator this coming Saturday. So it's going to be very helpful in terms of defining a lot of these unknowns, and we've been very reactive for a year. This was a nonprofit that said, let's hire an executive director to sort of steer the ship, and it was a lot of transition, and it was very reactive for the first year. And we really want to approach CCYP moving forward and how we're going to be this resource and this voice at this pivotal time with intention, and really moving forward with direction and forming that roadmap that we can say, this is what CCYP is going to do. This is our 1-year plan, our 3-year plan. This is the vision for 10 years. So the conversations are being had. What I will share with you as part of the process of scanning the environment coming up to this strategic planning session is we did interviews. We did online surveys of our member base, online surveys of non-members, and then we did personal interviews. Each of the board members and myself were asked to do one-on-one interviews with a member, a non-member, and a community leader. And it has been so interesting in terms of the perception of Cape Cod Young Professionals, what people are hoping for the role to be of our organization, and great ideas and suggestions of how we can implement these things and to see how it's going to unfold. I mean, I'm thrilled to be a part of this organization, and I know that we are going to make a large impact on this moving forward. We've got great momentum. We've got an incredible working board. We have strong committees. We have our sponsors who really believe and understand what we're doing. So we have some momentum. We have some build up. And I will share with you specifically, I meant to mention this in my introduction, that part of that survey was, what is the greatest challenge of living on Cape Cod? And the #1 response was career opportunities, followed by cost of living, followed by housing. I mean, this isn't new. This is why we're all gathered here, right? The social scene, as Tom mentioned, was mentioned but low. Schools were not brought to the point of being a challenge for people. And then lastly, which wasn't listed, was childcare. There are serious childcare issues for people who have double income families and are at a loss for what to do when they don't have their in-laws on the Cape, as a lot of people don't. So these are the issues we're really trying to heighten our awareness. But the key and the focus is we want to be working collaboratively. I mean, everybody is focused on trying to start the communication to solve these problems, and we can't work in these silos and all have these fantastic ideas and try to execute. We need to be working regionally and saying, how can we all work together and change and reverse this trend? So I think that's part of what Cape Cod Young Professionals will be doing in the future.
Tom, would you like to comment on that?
I have a question. For Patrick King. The employment problem here was not probably corrected, but it was really taken care of in a sense with Stop and Shop, motels here, restaurants with foreign help. And we've all seen, when you go and Stop and Shop, the new hot year the last 2 years is Bulgaria. They have 70 or 80 Bulgarian employees. My question to Patrick Kane is that any source of employment for the hospital? Do you have foreign employees there now? Is that anything that you'd look toward in the future?
I don't know the percentage of internationals who work for us at this time. I do know that our patient mix, we have probably 20 or 22 in the staff are interpreters, so that we can take care, as a nonprofit, we're obligated to care for anybody that walks through the door. But as far as the employment mix, I really couldn't tell you. I would guess that it mirrors, for the most part, the makeup of the Cape now. But I will tell you that our turnover rate is extraordinarily low, particularly in tough times. People aren't leaving those jobs. So the opportunities, one of the weaknesses we have, or challenges, I guess, would be that we don't have the opportunity to employ more young people. This is the first year we weren't able to hire student nurses out of graduate school. Our nurses who recently graduated and became RNs, we didn't have openings. The folks are staying there, and they're staying with the jobs. So I'm not able to give you specifics on that, but the hiring has not been great, and our volumes have remained pretty much flat over about a 7-year period. In terms of inpatient, there has been a shift on some outpatient. That's increased a little bit as that becomes more acceptable, but that's where we stand on the employment issue.
Other questions?
You were mentioning earlier the need to mix the healthy and the unhealthy in order to maintain your ratio. But a lot of diseases of age are chronic and degenerative. But are you going to be financially punished because of the population that you serve?
Dr. Reed probably can have to be a little more authoritative on that than I can, but I can tell you, there's different phrases that seem to come and go, don't they, Dr. Reed, depending on what legislation you read, but an episode of care. I mean, and one thing hospitals do a poor job of, and we've got to get better, is taking care of the chronically ill, the repeat offenders. I know we have a project going on right now.
Okay, sure.
That's right. Sorry about that. The repeat visitors.
But it certainly is going to be an issue for hospitals when, in particular, where we already had once upon a time diagnosis-related groups where you're paid a certain amount for a particular diagnosis on an admission. Now they will have a thing basically where if you have congestive heart failure and you're admitted 3 or 4 times for the same thing, the hospital simply will not get paid for a repeat admission. It's going to be their interest. So at some level, yes, in fact, hospitals and care providers may be penalized for the healthiness or unhealthiness of their populations.
Right.
It's partly in our interest to advance the health, to improve the health of those populations and to help. That's not always possible, and it's going to be very difficult for a government or insurance agency to come out with the right numbers about what they should or should not reimburse for one particular person's care. It's a very difficult thing to peg.
One of the things we're trying to do to address that issue, for example, we have a pilot program going on now where we look at where the highest level of readmissions are, congestive heart failure, for example, and we send a PharmD, a pharmacology, doctorate in pharmacology, into the person's home to go through all their medications. And we do that in an effort to limit readmissions. So by limiting readmissions is getting toward this. Now, this is a pilot project. I think we've probably got 60 people enrolled in it this year so far. And we're going to have to do things in new ways to manage those chronic illnesses and keep them out of the hospital. Because again, we're going to be penalized for readmissions. So it goes back to the widget is quality.
Question back there, Joe. That lady.
Hi, I don't have a question. I'm Mary Little. I'm the chair of the Orleans Elementary School Committee, and I wanted to go back to the question about the schools. And I do think that Orleans has a fine elementary school, and the Nauset Regional District is one of the best in the state, if not the country. But it depends on the voters to vote for the budgets to get them through, to get the fine teachers that we need to keep the schools going. And the schools will only do more to attract young families, because being in real estate, one of the first things people ask if it's a young family is, what is the school system like? So it's thanks to you sitting in this room that helps our schools grow, and it will continue to help them grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any other questions? There's a question down here in the front row.
I can actually talk pretty loud, so I'll get started. One of the words that I've heard mentioned several times is local. And I've also heard the phrase mentioned that you've had to outsource or go off Cape to find goods, products, or services. Not to plug the CCYP again, but I've been on the board for over 5 years. I understand the importance in trying to keep money locally here on the Cape. I know it's very easy with the internet and a lot of larger chains and off-Cape companies. I see a lot of phone numbers on trucks and whatnot for businesses that don't even belong on the Cape or aren't even from the Cape. Would you say that it has an effect on our education, on our healthcare, on our taxes that it's important that we make every effort possible to try and keep money locally here? Or do you think that it is a benefit to try and send money off Cape? What is your stance in terms of money spent and how it should be?
Bill, maybe you could take a whack at that question.
Certainly, I think local is where we all want to be. It's just logical sense. Unfortunately, at times it becomes not practical just because you can't get who you need, when you need it, and why. And like I said, I think while I was speaking, it's not something I like to do. But on occasion, it's necessary to do it, to remain competitive, to stay in business. Certainly, it's going to affect our economy. It's taking money out of the Cape. We all are paying taxes here. A lot of our tax dollars, I believe, are earmarked for education. And as Mary was saying, I applaud what you're saying there, Mary. That is a hard thing to give up when you don't have kids in the school systems, but these school systems here are just really unbelievable. It really is a wonderful experience that we've had with our 3 kids that are still in the systems here, and I think it's really going to bring them to places they may not have normally gone without it. So how do we keep it here? I think revolves right back into a big circle of affordable housing and attracting families here somehow, some way, besides just the Cape Cod lifestyle, which we all love. So I don't know if I've answered you because it's probably not answerable.
Another question down here? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, when we did our renovation of the medical center in East Orleans, we did use all local contractors and businesses. We had an architect actually from out of state help us, but otherwise it was all local people and trying to keep it local.
Tim,
yeah.
I just want to, sorry, I'm his wife, and we were actually dissuaded, and we had trouble with the loans because it cost us a lot more money to work locally, and it set up this dialogue between why aren't our local people staying on the cutting edge, and this was a few years ago. We were looking for accreditation for sustainable building. And not many firms around here at that time had that kind of accreditation. Since then, things have improved dramatically. But there is this kind of balance between sometimes we go off Cape because people aren't at the top of their game. And we have to insist, like quality, stays at the top of its game as part of a way for all of us, I think, to survive.
Thank you. There was a question here, sir.
Really, it's more of a statement. I listened to Sean about on Cape versus off Cape. And, you know, that brings me back to when I moved back east from California. I moved back to Nantucket. I had a house on Nantucket. When I got out there, I noticed that the locals were really struggling, and all of the folks in the building trade were flying over on the Cape Air daily to fly over and build whatever needed to be built. But you know, we as we move forward, as a Cape resident myself, I just look at this whole thing as being like Nantucket being repeated. We're bringing on the folks that come in the summertime and are paying a whole lot of money. They have a whole lot of money, and they're paying a whole lot of money for real estate, and they're only here for 4 to 6 or whatever it is, 8 months at tops, and they move off. So we've got a demographics that's kind of like moving in the direction of the folks from New Jersey who work in New York City right on Wall Street or whatever, and they're buying up the property, and we're fighting a battle which I don't have an answer for, but I just think looking at this whole thing, this is Nantucket in a repeat it happens to be the mainland. Folks can drive here, don't have to fly here, get on the boat to go across the water. But this is a whole repeat process, and I don't have any solutions for you folks. I just wanted to say, I think, being like Nantucket, folks are coming across the bridge instead of across the water.
We have a question over here.
I think we want to be careful that we don't only look back. I'm not trying to discount anything in terms of the assumptions of the meeting, but we're talking about what happened demographically in the past 10, 12 years. Bear in mind, most of us here, if not all of us, are probably Depression babies or grew up in the Depression. And what happened after us was the World War II baby boom. And demographically speaking, that's a tremendously significant development. And when I've thought about, Patrick mentioned it just briefly, the implications for health care and so on. There are tremendous implications in that, and some of them are positive. I've always thought, let's see, I'm not going to last indefinitely. That house is going to have to be sold sometime. Who in the world is going to buy it? We've got the lowest population right now. Oh, wait a minute, baby boomers. They're retiring. They're starting to retire now, and will be for the next, 15, 20 years, 30 years? In any case, I think that's going to be a positive development in the sense that, like us, a lot of retirees are going to want to come to the Cape. We've got some economic problems we're going to have to see our way through, but let's consider the implications of that tremendous growth and that baby boom, that bubble, if you wish, because it's almost upon us.
What do you think of that, Tom? Would you care to comment on that?
Well, the baby boomers have already affected our market and will continue to. I don't know how big a wave it'll be, though. It's a factor. It's hard to tell how much of a factor.
As a former school person, I can tell you it has major implications, tremendous growth in what happens to population.
Ann, did you want to comment?
Well, I just wanted to comment because as a lot of these comments and suggestions and discussions have happened, I've been thinking, gosh, I really am the eternal optimist, and I really do think that I'm very hopeful for what's going to happen here on the Cape, and I think that we need to create the resources, and a lot of these issues are very real and very difficult to tackle, but I think that with some motion and some movements to keep things really local and to focus on creating those resources for people, and how can we communicate when you need, Bill, when you need XYZ in terms of resources or opportunities, to reach out to someone who is saying, hey, we want to be that resource for people to come to, and everyone's saying, okay, let's go to that resource. And it might be pie in the sky, but anything's possible, and I think we just need to work together to try to reverse what's happening. And this isn't there. When I'm at these meetings that are buzzing with people and 700 strong at these events, at this major one event in the year, I mean, there's no doom and gloom or what are we going to do with Cape Cod. There is just some really positive future thoughts about what's happening here.
We have a Jim Trainer would like to make a comment. He's also a real estate agent in Orleans.
The question is, we're talking about Orleans. Why would people come here now? What does Orleans have to offer? Tom mentioned the beaches and Pleasant Bay and so forth. But this economy, the last few years, the baby boomers who are retiring have a big adjustment to make. Many of them do not have the incomes they thought they had 3 or 5 years ago. In Massachusetts, we have a state income tax, we have an estate tax, and we have a sales tax. And there are migrations in the country now where people are going to states to retire that don't have that. there's been a boom of $2 to $5 million home sales on the Lower Cape. But they're never going to live here. They might spend a lot of time here, but they're going to be residents of Florida or some state where they don't have to pay a sales tax and a state tax or an estate tax. So Orleans, if we, in this little town, keep spending, if we double or triple our tax rate, which was a huge draw over the last 30 years here, people from New York, New Jersey would come and say, wow, taxes are $3,000, $5,000, we're paying $20,000 to $25,000. And if that increases, the young people certainly aren't going to be able to come here. And the retirees will choose, if they have enough money to get a second home, but not become residents. So I think Orleans and towns like ours have to find some way of making it financially feasible for these people to come here and want to be here. But if anybody has ideas as to what would make somebody want to come to Orleans right now?
The Orleans Citizens Forum.
Well, I'll open that up to anybody on the panel that would like to comment on that question. If not, we have another question back there. Ben?
Thank you for coming, folks. Everyone. I've lived in Cape all my life. My family goes back for generations in this Lower Cape area. And what I have seen and witnessed is one thing, larger government control over every aspect of our lives. Regulation to the healthcare industry. I see the building industry being regulated more and more and more. Shackles are put on each one of your companies, and regulations, and now electronic controls. Doesn't it seem like we need a change in the way we approach our way our government is being? And while it just seems that the private business that has made our country great is being pruned to a point where it really can't work unless they are under complete control of the government. And I watch it get right here in this town locally, and I watch it county-wide, statewide, and then of course this insurance mandate. And I saw Dr. Brinning, you might have known him. He used to have a practice, and he did $5 calls to a patient.
Ben, can you get to a question?
Well, it
because there are other people.
It seems that the regulations need to be.
I mean, I think as with building codes, I mean, there are regulations that probably need reform, and the regulations that are important and worthwhile. And I think actually, as a physician, I mean, the health insurance mandate, I mean, having people have insurance, I think is an excellent idea. As I say, it doesn't always correspond with getting the care that they should have, and that needs to be addressed as well. And it's expensive to do, but it's an important step, and so I'm kind of behind that.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and then I think we'll wrap it up because it's 8 o'clock, and I see a lot of people getting restless to want to move on. So go ahead, sir.
I have a suggestion. On the Cape at the present time, there's a really large shortage of psychiatrists, especially people who are specialized in geriatrics and also child and adolescents. And I would suggest that the young professionals and the healthcare system have a meeting in which you go to the medical school with a package to offer the residents who are graduating and try in some way to create a package to bring a psychiatrist to the Cape. I'm a psychologist. I'm in private practice here in Orleans. And 2 days ago, I referred a patient who was in trouble to 3 psychiatrists. 2 refused to take her because they don't take any more patients, and the third refused to take insurance. So there's really no place for this person to go. And she is too disturbed for a general practitioner. So what is she supposed to do? There's nobody around.
Can you comment on that, either one of the Ken or Pat or Dr. Tim?
It's absolutely a crucial need. And I think you left out, besides geriatrics and young people, we have a severe substance abuse problem on the Cape. And the recruitment of psychiatrists is an ongoing, not only with this healthcare system, but healthcare systems across the country. There's a shortage nationwide, and it's a huge problem. There's no question about it. You've identified it. I don't have an answer for you, but all I can say is there are people aware of the shortage. There are people working on it. Is it going to get fixed tomorrow? No, but you hit the nail right on the head. You're 100% accurate.
Why not tap the retired psychiatrists who are living here? Every third or fourth person is a psychiatrist.
Okay, I think we've kind of reached the end of the evening. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank our panel. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
The problem is...